started with this, I thank you first of all for coming out tonight. I'm sure you'd rather be at home watching Netflix or something instead of this presentation, but I appreciate the fact that you're here to listen to this. So I want to just look at a few notes here. There's some cookies, there's water back there, you can get some beverages at the bar. My name is Murray Matt. I'm one of the board members, secretary actually, and also on the Architectural Review Committee chairperson. So maybe you've seen my name, you know, if you built a house or you had a fence to put up or something like that. My wife and I, my wife Sue back there, we live on Park Drive, that's where we used to live. 3425 Grand Way South. So we're one of the 5 houses on the, I'm going to say it's the North Quarry. And a little history on myself, I'm a retired architect. I had my own firm in St. Cloud for about 35 years. And so when we built our house, I kind of was looking at this granite stuff and saying, yeah, it seems weird that they must have a reason to do it, or they can do it, or they have a permit, whatever. So actually, 2 years went by, and I was just thinking about it. One day I decided in January to reach out to the city and say, can I see the permit that these guys have for this site and what it looks like, and what the hours of operation are, etc. And the city said, well, they don't have a permit. So that was the first sort of red flag about, you know, what's going on here, and is this allowed use or whatever. So that kind of started the whole process. And part of this for me is, you know, it's bothersome obviously to us in our location where we live. But secondly, I care about the neighborhood and what it's doing to the neighborhood. And finally, I mean, I spent 35 years in front of planning commissions and councils and neighborhood meetings and stuff when I did projects, and I had to follow the rules. I had to read all these ordinances and stuff, and the projects had to follow the rules. So part of this is like, now I'm on the other side of the fence, and something just doesn't seem right. And so I've been working on this for a while. I'm going to try to go through this relatively quick because it's torture. It's lots of technical terms and acronyms and stuff. So I'm going to spend about 15 minutes, hopefully, if you can stay awake that long, going through sort of the big elephant in the room, if you will, about what's going on over there and what we should be able to do about it. After that will be a presentation that's mostly all the stuff that the city's seen, and it's very technical. And I'm not going to, bore you with those details. We can go into it if you want to, but I'm going to kind of go through that fast so we can get some back and forth. And feel free to ask me questions at any time during this presentation. If something's like, hey, I don't get that, or what does that mean? Just raise your hand and we'll deal with it. So let's get started. This is one of the slides that I showed the city, and the top picture is actually from the HOA website. I don't know when this was taken, maybe 5-6 years ago, but it's basically that whole area that we're talking about right now. And if you look at the picture below, that kind of, you guys know, you drive by it all the time. That's kind of what it looks like. So the timeline for this was in January of this year. I sent an email to the city asking about permitting. In February, I kind of did some research on this once I found out that they didn't have a permit. And I'm like, okay, what kind of permits should they have? What stuff comes into play? In March, Kurt Nessie, our president, Kurt, raise your hand. He and I set up a meeting with the planning director, Matt Glazeman. He's kind of the guy who runs a show at the city when it comes to ordinances and zoning and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to just have a meeting with him to try to understand what it is that's going on. So the three of us sat down. At that time, we really didn't have much information. This presentation wasn't done. we just kind of said, well, they don't have a permit. What's up with that? Should they be able to do this, etc.? And Matt kind of was like, well, yeah, they shouldn't. They're really kind of just getting it ready for development, like a project, an apartment or townhomes or other houses or something like that. And, as long as they're just picking up the rock that's on the site and getting rid of it, taking it off the site, everything's kind of like okay. And we said, well, they're actually excavating there. They're not just taking the rock that was on the surface, they're actually excavating. So that was kind of a big deal, and I don't think the city actually realized that till they went out to the site, because the story kind of changed after that in terms of what they said required a permit or not. So anyway, in March, Kurt and I met with them. We got a response back from the city that was very pro-granite company. They talked to them. I mean, basically, they just, the granite company, said everything that they wanted the city to hear. And the city just said, okay. And so it was discouraging to us to get this, response back from the city. This seemed like it was totally supporting the granite company without any concern for the neighborhood. So at that point, though, the granite company did not have what's called a land disturbance permit. That's kind of the first thing that you have to get, which is if you're going to dig out there, you got to get this LDP, and they didn't have one. So the city was sort of on the corner on that, and they forced the granite company to get a land disturbance permit. And so they were issued a NOV, which is a notice of violation. So, and the only reason he did that was because I initiated the call and I asked, do you have permits? No. And interesting enough, it was 2 weeks after the granite company got their notice of violation, they issued one to the HOA because we didn't have grass covered in the isthmus area between the two quarries. So it was almost like, okay, this is payback for, bothering the city with this issue. And so the HOA had to unexpectedly spend $7,500 to put seed over the dirt that had been spread in that middle part. So in April, I met with two HOA residents to go through these findings. And I really wanted to do this in kind of a slow process. I wanted to give the city an opportunity to respond to this without calling them out in front of the council or on TV or whatever. And they just never took advantage of that. So in the meantime, I thought, well, I want to be careful about riling up the granite company if there's no merit behind these issues, because maybe they could do something worse than they're already doing. So I was very careful about the steps that I took to bring this issue forward. And so anyway, at some point, I wanted to meet with a couple of the HOA residents to just get their preliminary input on it. So that was in April. In May, I met with the city officials again because I had more information. The granite company wasn't, in my opinion, following the stormwater pollution control restrictions that were put in there for the notice of violation, et cetera, et cetera. So I met with the planning director, the city administrator, and the stormwater director. And they listened, shook their head, and just kind of said, okay, we'll check into it and get back to you. And we really don't hear much. So in June, I met again with Matt Glazeman, and interesting enough, I'm like, okay, what's the timeline on this? Are they going to be doing this for just another year or 5 years or what? We should really have a timeline. And I asked Matt, why aren't you getting answers on this? And Matt said, they lawyered up. Well, so the only thing I can take from that is you've got a corporation, a granite company that's got an attorney representing them. They're an easier thing to cave into than a single homeowner, that's just complaining. So at that point, I assumed the granite company lawyered up. The city said, okay, we're going to, take their side if that's how you can say it. And all of a sudden, we don't get any response back from the city. So in July, I finally got tired of dealing with city staff, the director, the stormwater guys, whatever. So I sent a memo to the mayor. That's one of the things that was sent out in the packet, if you got that. And basically, I just explained to him as an elected official, pay attention to this. The staff has their opinion, but you're an elected official to represent the residents of this city. So he read the memo. I got a meeting with him, took an hour. He seemed concerned and agreed that, yeah, there seems like some issues. He turned it over to his staff, and then I got the staff response, which is the other document that I sent out that was basically a regurgitation of previous comments from the city staff. So then I wrote the rebuttal, which was in that document sent out, which basically was the end of communications more or less with the city. So in September, the next thing I did was reach out to Mike Conway. He's our ward representative and our council member. So that was a battle. He didn't respond. First of all, I reached out to him probably in June. I got no response at all. So finally, thanks to Denny a little bit, because he's got some connections, being on the zoning board of appeals at the city, kind of said, Mike, we got something we want to talk to you about. So we did get him to come and look at the presentation, the second part of what you'll see tonight. And he shook his head. Yeah, seems like there's some issues here. Then he went dark. Didn't hear anything from him for like 3 weeks. Well, I ran into him. I went to a planning commission presentation at City Hall to do some downtown planning stuff, just a community service type of thing. And he was there. So he almost had to come over to me and said, okay, what's going on with the neighborhood thing? And I said, well, nothing. I said, you haven't responded, first of all. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I said, well, the next step is probably to bring this to the HOA, because I've been trying to keep this, just with the city. And nothing's happening. So he said, well, just between you and me, if you could get HOA support or neighborhood support beyond just yourself, that will make a difference. And I said to him, what does it matter if it's one person or 100? If the city isn't following their rules and regulations, shouldn't they respond? And he just couldn't even answer the question. So that was September. In October, I finally brought this issue before the board. And I should say that my presentation tonight is not board sponsored or architectural review sponsored. I'm here as a resident of the community, informing you of what I know about what's going on with this. So just keep that in mind as you look at all this information. So here we are today, November, presentation to you guys. I kind of have two goals here tonight. One is to keep you awake for 15 minutes, hopefully, to see the first part of this. The second is to hopefully give you enough information and initiative to sign a petition, which I would use then to bring to the city and say, it's not just me. It's other people in this neighborhood that care about this, and here are their names. And maybe that'll start to make a difference. I don't know, because there has to be some political pressure brought on this issue. So anyway, quickly, that is the timeline of what's happened so far. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, I had to use this pun, the tip of the rock pile. There's one significant issue that really could shut this whole thing down, in my opinion. And that's the fact that this is a planned unit development, that's a PUD for short, that we all live in. And the granite company is operating in the same PUD that our homes are in. And commercial activity is not allowed in a PUD. So the city has taken some roundabout ways to, explain that away or whatever, and I'll go through that. But really, beyond all the permits and all the other stuff that this granite company has basically ignored, this is the big deal. So I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail. After that, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that some of the city officials have seen, the board has seen, and we, can have more conversation, or feel free to interject as you have questions. So I tried to make this into a simple diagram instead of lots of words about the, how the ordinance works and stuff, so that you can understand the hierarchy of how the ordinances and stuff apply in a neighborhood. So this big blue circle is the city's comprehensive plan. That's their big picture stuff. Like, okay, we want to do this. We want our city to look nice. We want all these different things. If you want to look at it, it's online. It's, a pretty detailed document. Inside of the comprehensive plan are all the ordinances, the codes, the permits, all those things that are more technical and very specific. Inside of that are a variety of zones in the city. You have commercial, residential, industrial, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds. There's like 15 different zones probably within the city of St. Cloud. And so one of those types of zones is a PUD, or a planned unit development. And there are PUDs. The PUD typically there's an overriding sort of generic PUD that sets the general rules for what can happen in the PUD. Then there are specific PUDs. And all of us, are in what's called the Quarry Woods PUD. There are other PUDs in the cities. There's a Westwood PUD. I don't know. I'd have to look them all up. But each PUD has, in addition to the general obligations and rules or whatever, it gets more specific, even to the point like those of you that have homes along the woods and stuff that goes between like your house and maybe to the east towards Deer Creek, there's a rare flower that lives in those woods, an orchid. And the city wrote 2 pages in the PUD about how that orchid should be protected. So that's what I mean, how it can get very specific actually to that neighborhood. So within our PUD, the Quarry Woods PUD, there are 3 kind of entities. You have the Quarry Woods HOA, that's all of us. You have the Granite Company, they own property inside the Quarry Woods PUD. And then you have the homes to the east. Now, I don't even know if I know this for sure because I've heard it from other people that have been here longer. There were other homes in the Quarry Woods HOA initially that are on the other side of the woods. Is this true?
Orchid Loop. Yeah.
Orchid Loop, okay. So they were part of the HOA to start with, and they broke off for some reason. I'm not even totally sure of that, but they are actually also within the Quarry Woods PUD, but not under the HOA because they broke off. So underneath the Quarry Woods HOA are the bylaws and the covenants that rule what we do. And so in some cases, our covenants are different than what the city would say about what the setbacks are and so forth. So the setbacks actually are more generous in the Quarry Woods PUD than they are in the city's PUD, just because when the developer made that PUD 20 years ago, that's what they wanted to do. And those covenants still are there. And to be honest, they're a bear cat to deal with. As the ARC chairperson, it's very difficult to deal with those 20-year-old covenants and try to enforce them. And there's problems that come up almost every time we look at a project. So anyway, this is how all of this is sort of controlled as far as regulations in the city, and when the HOA has jurisdiction and when the city does and so forth. So hopefully this diagram just explains that situation a little bit better. So now, this is where it gets detailed. And I don't expect you to read all this stuff. I'm going to try to highlight, some of the things. So these are articles right out of the ordinance from the city. And these are the general PUD restrictions. And you see in this yellow area right up here, that's planning unit development district. So right here, and I have it highlighted in this area, a PUD district may also be mixed use so that it is not only contains residential, commercial, or industrial, but a combination of those uses. So maybe the city would say, well, gee, this is a mixed use PUD. It's got houses and it's got this industrial thing happening over here. But when you go and look at what the Quarry Woods PUD says, it's mixed residential, which means single family homes, townhomes, and apartments. Nothing commercial. So the city can't go back to this comment here and say, well, yeah, it can be industrial or commercial or anything we want in there. It's residential only. So these are all little excerpts from the general PUD restrictions that the city mandates. The PUD must be compatible with the purpose intent of the code, blah, blah, blah. Must not substantially diminish the market value of surrounding properties, and it must not cause substantial impairment of the use of those properties. The PUD must not adversely affect natural environment of the community. I think you could argue that some of the stuff they've done to the quarry has affected the natural environment. Natural assets and features such as existing trees, native vegetation must be protected and preserved to the greatest extent practical. Will not cause such an adverse impact on neighboring properties so as to outweigh the benefits of the development. Is compatible with the land use policies of the comprehensive plan. Provide a public benefit. I don't know what the public benefit is, but anyway, landscaping, buffering, screening within and around the perimeter of the PUD should be over and above the minimum required by the code. So if you drive down 33rd and look at that granite operation that's going on down by Highway 15, that entire site has a 20-foot earth berm around it to screen it off and to keep the dust and everything from hitting the adjacent properties. In fact, that company had to buy a single-family residence right next to it to do their operation. The proposed PUD is not detrimental, nor does it endanger public health, safety, comfort, general welfare of the community, not injurious to the use or enjoyment of the property. Proposed PUD does not diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. I don't know, I sure would hate to be trying to sell my house, have somebody come back there, and this backhoe is tearing up this quarry straight time every day. Any deviation from the approved plans is a violation of this code. So one of the things I'll show you in a little bit is the city approved a 79-unit apartment building project and patio homes on the North Quarry site. They have no approved plan on the area that they're operating on the South Quarry site, the part that they're digging in right now. Technically, they should have submitted a plan that said, okay, we're going to put townhomes in. There's going to be 15 or 20 or whatever it is, or we're going to put single-family homes in before they're even allowed to go in and excavate. There's no plan. Erosion control and stormwater management. So when they come in there and dig, and they got this big mound of dirt, they're supposed to control all the runoff so it doesn't go into the quarry, doesn't come onto the common area land in the isthmus between the two quarries. There were significant issues this spring relative to not paying attention to those rules. So all that stuff I just went through, that is general PUD regulations. Now this stuff right here, this language, this is the Quarry Woods PUD language. So when you look at this, this is where it says, and previously this site was zoned RR, which is rural residential. And that is the only zone that allows mineral extraction by code. So when 20 years ago, when the city said, hey, or the developer said, we want to make this into a residential area, and they both agreed, the city and the developer, let's make it into a PUD. It got zoned from the RR to the PUD, and it became the Quarry Woods PUD, and it's a mixed residential planned unit. not mixed industrial, mixed commercial, mixed residential. The principal uses are single-family residential, duplex, single-family, and apartments. That's it. Commercial restrictions. This is a big deal. The sale or display of a product or commodity that is readily visible and accessible by non-residents of the property shall be prohibited. Well, they're digging up rocks, they make them in piles, they sort them by size and by color. Trucks come in, they purchase these rocks, and there's a sale. There's product, there's sale. It's a commercial activity. Approved site plan. There's no approved site plan for the site that they're working on currently. So that was the language from 2001 or something like that when they first put this together. In 2019, there was an update to the Quarry Woods PUD. And at that time, the person who owned all those quarries, it was a single person, Linda Paulson. I don't know her. I don't know if anyone knows her. She just happened to be the owner of those quarry properties. I don't know how long or how she had them, but anyway, there was nothing happening on those sites. And so either she or a developer came to her and said, okay, let's see if we can get a project approved on the North Quarry site to put apartments in there and patio homes. So in 2019, somebody, a developer, Danny maybe knows more about this because he went to the public hearing, went to the city, to the planning commission and said, we want to do an apartment project. I think Denny, Roger Bond, and I don't know, one other person showed up at the public hearing and said, you know what, we really don't want to have an apartment in our single family residential neighborhood. We don't like it, blah, 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 the kind of stuff that neighbors sometimes complain about when somebody's going to do something like that in your neighborhood. But they have every right to do it by the PUD regulations. So anyway, the planning commission approved it. And the council approved it, and it went through. And this was in 2019. So at that point, the city approved development plan for Outlot I, which is the North Quarry, limited to a maximum of 78 unit multifamily apartments and patio homes. It says development of the Quarry Woods Outlot F, that's that other quarry, the one they're working in now, will require a PUD development plan amendment to be approved by the city of St. Cloud. So before they could even operate on that site, they should have come forward to the city with a plan. Like, what are we going to do here? How are we going to get utilities in there? I don't know. That's going to be challenging, to say the least. So at first the city said, well, and this is before I think they even knew what was going on over there, because I think they were surprised once they went out to the site and it's like, whoa, they need a permit for all this stuff. And when Kurt and I met with the planning director, he specifically said if they're excavating, then they need to have what's called a temporary excavation permit. And he said they're just picking up the rock that's scattered around or on the side or whatever, and they're getting them off the site, and they're doing this in preparation for a future development. And that was the city's argument, that they're out there getting this ready for development. And I've been around the horn a few times, and I'm like, there's no way these guys are out there getting this ready for a development. It's a business operating as a mining operation. And they're just going to keep doing this until they sell all the rocks and disappear, in the middle of the night and leave the site sitting who knows in what kind of state. And they don't care. They're not the developers. And why didn't this site get developed in 2019 or 20 or 21? Nobody wants to develop that site because it's challenging. It's got holes, it's got water table, it's got granite everywhere.
Murray, which site are you talking about?
I'm talking about the north site, the big one.
About the one closest to the old Persian Club?
Yes. And I'll show you a picture of what that looks like and what the apartment was supposed to look like and everything else. So, yeah, Danny.
One of the things the city said to develop on that site, they either have to drive I-beam pilings down where they have to secure the soil because of all the rock that's buried in it, which prohibited basically from building apartments there, unless you would dig it down 100 feet, clear it, or the steel pilings would be cost prohibitive. So they put restrictions in at that time, and then they also said if you build townhouses, we have to approve them because they have to be upscale and nice. So that was kind of their way of trying to protect us, meaning the neighborhood. when
Yeah,
they passed.
right, yeah. So eventually, even if a real project would have been coming forward, it would have still had to go through a city review process. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. So anyway, the city originally was like taking this angle that this is just they're preparing it for development. Well, pretty soon that story kind of fell apart because it became more and more obvious that they were doing much more than just pulling some rock off the surface of that area to get it ready for development. So if you read through my horrendous stuff I sent out with the rebuttal and all that, this was one of the things that I really hit on was there's no development plan. What is their timeline? When is this going to be done? How are they going to get utilities in and so forth? And I challenge the city to say, this is not a development in process. It's a business, it's a mining operation, is what it is. And finally, the city said, correct. Neither site is a development at this time, but it will be someday. In the meantime, I guess we can suffer through, another 15 or 20 years of their operations until it is ready. I don't know if that's what the city thinks. I'm not going to read through all this rebuttal stuff. I really encourage you, if you really want to dig into the details, to get into that part of it. But this is really, the main story, so to speak, in terms of this being a planned unit development. Their property is in the same Quarry Woods PUD that all of us are, and they should have to follow the same rules. I mean, when you guys built your house, if you built a house, you did your plans, you gave them to the city, they reviewed them, you got a permit, you did your stormwater protection, you had inspections, you did all that stuff. These guys, until somebody said they don't have a permit, they didn't do any of it. And I don't know if they're really smart or really dumb. This is one of the two. So what are the facts up to this point? The mining sites are definitely in the Quarry Woods PUD. The PUD does not allow commercial activity. That's evident. It's clear. The city admits that the activity is not a development. If it's not a development in progress, then it's a commercial activity. The use is simply not allowed. Period.
We didn't create the PUD, the city did, correct?
The city and the developer created the PUD.
So we just live in that PUD.
Yes, yes. And like if you go over to Deer Creek to the east of us, that looks like a very similar neighborhood. It's not a PUD. It's just single family residential. R1 is the zoning district that it's called by the city. So that's where they're going to live by the city regulations of R1. We live by the city regulations of the general PUD and the Quarry Woods PUD.
The Quarry Woods PUD has nothing to do with the granite company. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Their property is within the Quarry Woods PUD. They are not inside the Quarry Woods HOA,
Okay.
so they don't have to deal with the covenants and bylaws and stuff like that.
They were
Yes.
They were there first though, right? I mean, obviously they were mining it before they got home.
Well, no, technically they weren't there first. They just bought that property in like 2022.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Question back there.
I have a question. The property over on 33rd is owned by a friend of mine who sold the property. They're tearing the house down.
Are you talking about the Mick house?
Over on 33rd.
Terry Mick's house, old house?
Well, it's a brand new house.
Well, yeah.
But it was just being torn down. Tom Kramer did the original project, did a great job. Knife River bought all that now.
Yes.
So the problem is that if Knife River would come and buy this, do they have the capability of bringing a crusher in to get this stuff out faster, which we have to worry about the summer?
Well, yeah, that's kind of a long story. The city has said in one of their reasons why this company doesn't need a temporary excavation permit, which is different than the PUD regulations. This is more of a permit thing. What I've been talking about here with the PUD is more of an ordinance type thing. There was a temporary excavation permit in place on this site up until 2007. And the city claims that at that time there was crushing and grinding and blasting and whatever. So that's why they're saying they don't need that permit now because they're not doing those types of things. But I would argue that the noise that's coming out of that area now, by scraping these rocks out of there and loading them in the trucks and taking their big backhoe with a big ball. I mean, look in that site, you'll see they have a big concrete ball. They drop that thing on chunks of concrete or granite, break it apart. That is just as noisy, I think, as a grinding process that is going on over at Knife River. Now, Knife River operation is in Wade Park. So, whole different set of rules and regulations over there than what St. Cloud has, but both of them are in Stearns County. So there are some county rules that definitely oversee this as well. Well, could Knife River come in there and get this thing done in a year or two and we suffer, just get it done with? That probably would be good. That would be okay. I think we would all say, get it over with. I don't know. But as it is now, you have one backhoe and one truck. I mean, it's like going over to somebody's house here with a little Tonka truck and a spoon. And
I don't know if you'd like the crushing. We lived with that for several years when we built.
I'm sure,
2006. And when those rocks were dropped into the bin and bounced around, and then the crushing.
It's horrible.
All day long.
Yes.
And even on the weekends, they were doing it.
Yeah.
We
I-
couldn't entertain outside.
I feel so sorry for you, Pat, because you're right on that corner. You were the first one here, and
15 years of it, I've heard these rocks, from both corners.
and you can still, your hearing is still, I don't,
Like you live by a railroad, you get kind of used to it. It's like-
well, and the thing is at that time, when they first did this development, yeah, there were lots of rock piles around, and granted, they were trying to clean it up for a site, but now, I mean, when you look at some of the aerial pictures I'll show you, this thing was just sitting here for years and years and years. Like, okay, it's done. They approved an apartment project. That's what you should do. But no, this granite company comes along, did a few test digs, found some rocks, and said, you know what? I think we can use this. So they reopened an abandoned operation that was supposed to be done. Now, could they just grab all these rocks and put them in a bunch of trucks and haul them over to Knife River, let them grind them up over there? I don't know. That'd be a good idea to me.
I'm curious, the owners of the granite company, are they local?
No,
Why-
they're based out of Woodbury.
Why does the city seem like they're favoring someone that isn't local then? Would be a question I have.
That's a really good question. I don't have the answer. I'm not sure. Ken?
So typically, when you have mining activity of any kind, you have a multiple decade-long permit that was issued at some point that says you can go in and get material out of there, such as a gravel pit or anything. Do we know when the material permit was issued and when it actually expired?
Yes. There was a permit in place, I think, from, well, I'm not going to say I know exactly when it went into place. The only thing the city has told me is that another permit was not asked for or drawn from the city after 2007. Well, the reason for that is that's when they quit. There was no reason for anyone to take out a permit. because nothing happened. So now in 2021 or whenever this granite company based out of Woodbury shows up, it's like, well, first of all, they never even asked for any of the permits. I mean, they just started digging. And until somebody called the city and said, well, do they have a permit? Can they do this? I don't even think they understood, what they were getting into. In fact, they actually were doing operations on that site for probably almost a year without even owning the property. All you have to do is go into the Stearns County tax record site, and you can see when granite companies bought that site from Linda Paulson. And they were definitely operating on that site beforehand. They wanted to see, I think, what was down there and how profitable it would be before they actually bought it. And they bought all 3 pieces of property, their outlots, for give or take $1 million. So I'm going to keep going. So anyway, the one thing I want you to take away from what I just went through is we're all in a PUD together. It's a residential PUD. The granite company is in the same PUD, and commercial activity is prohibited. And I think that's kind of what is going on over there. All this other stuff I'm going to show you starting now, and I'm going to go through this fast. And we can go back and look at details if you want, but this is the presentation more or less that I showed the city officials, the mayor. I've changed a few things since then that new information's come up or whatever. The board has seen this presentation, and it goes into a little bit more detail about other stuff. So anyway, this is from our website. It's idyllic. Come to Quarry Woods. It's quiet. It's peaceful. I don't know. So again, keep in mind that this presentation is kind of meant to show people like a city council or other people that aren't familiar with our neighborhood, what it looks like, the type of homes that are there, etc. So if your house isn't on here, don't feel bad. I just took some pictures of nice houses in our neighborhood. So pictures of what's going on here. This stuff, we never could see that before. Like when we first bought our property in 2021 or something like that, there was this big ring of rocks around that north quarry pit, the south quarry pit, and like nothing was happening there. And I kind of looked at that at first. I thought, ooh, this is kind of weird. I wonder what they're going to do with all these rocks. But I didn't really care because you couldn't really see, and it was a screen. Well, the first thing these guys did when they showed up on that north quarry site is they tore down the screen wall. Then they went in the middle part and they tore up all the stuff that's inside there and made all these holes and leftover garbage and just whatever sitting out all the time. All this stuff. You know what? After a while too, you just get immune to it. You drive by it every day. It's pretty soon it's like, I don't even recognize it. It almost, I hate to say it, it's almost like it doesn't even bother me. But then family or friends come over for the first time and they're like, wow, what is that going on next to your house? And then you're almost embarrassed to say, yeah, we built our house here, and all of a sudden this backhoe showed up and they started tearing up, the whole site next to us. I don't know. So these pictures are meant to show the city officials what's going on here if they're not going to take the time to come out and look at it. This thing sitting on the North Quarry site I don't think it works. I don't know. Our covenants say you can't even have a trailer sitting in your driveway for 48 hours. That piece of junk has been sitting there for 3 years. I don't know. So here's this thing that they pick up and smash rocks. They totally ripped up the right-of-way along Stearns County. So I was curious about that. I called the county engineer. I said, can they just dig in the right-of-way? No. I said, do they have a permit? Let me check. Nope, they don't have a permit. So the county went over there and they belatedly got a county permit for digging in the right-of-way. This was after they tore down all the trees over there and the rocks that were acting as a screen to County Road 136 to those people that were exposed to it. So, I don't know. This isn't going to be very. I wish my speaker was louder.
Put your makeup on it.
Yeah, I could try that. So I have some, again, this is. I mean, it's almost like every day I get a new picture. This is stuff that was going on in the spring, and these are just taken from our backyard.
Well, and that's, that is not even, we can't even hear it.
I know.
I mean, at our house, and they go until dark. Even when it's dark, their lights are shining into our house. And it's so noisy all day, every single day. There is no way in the world I can ever put people over, ever. All summer long, all winter long, all winter.
So that video is the guy with his backhoe breaking rocks back there. And so if the city's going to say they're not crushing rock, I don't know what you call that. It looks like they're crushing rock to me. I mean, I wish this. Here. That's when he moves his machine from one side to the other. Just a second. Just wait. That's when they're kind of like loading a truck. This was in the spring. This is 2 nights ago at 5:30 at night.
Did they tell you how long this is supposed to go?
Yes, 4 years there and 10 years across the road. That's what they told
14
the
years?
cities. Yeah. 14 years on the north and 4 years.
Well, it'll be 3 years in January that they showed up on the site that they're on right now, right behind us. I'm not kidding. The day we moved in to our new house, that backhoe showed up back there. It's like, welcome.
And we're talking 4 years from now, they said.
Yeah.
On that quarry and 10 on the other one.
So I'm going to keep going through this quick. We all know where we live, blah, blah, blah. So this is from the city's zoning map. This area, outlot F, H, and I, those are the Granite Company. All this blue area, everything here, that's the Quarry Woods HOA. So the Granite Company owns this purple area, and this tiny little strip here next to 34th Street. Then you have the water, the 2 quarries here, and the isthmus in between. This is all owned by the HOA. You guys all own this. And if you remember discussions earlier about the path and what to do in the common area and stuff, this is HOA property. So what they're doing is adjacent to property that you own, even if it's not your own house. I'm not going to go through all this. There are 15 different things listed up there that this company should at least be looking into or adhering to. Permits, agencies, whatever, from MPCA to Stearns County, blah, blah, blah. City oversight. You have the city comp plan, I talked about that. You have the land development code, there's stormwater management, and then, the health concerns. these are excerpts from the comprehensive plan. So this area here, that's where we live. This was existing land use in 2016. So we look at the current zoning, PUD, that's this area right here. High quality development and design in plan unit developments. How can we have a high quality development here with this? Denny likes to say it looks like Palestine or Kosovo or something, you know, like it got blown up, or, I mean, that's what it looks like. So this,
One other thing, just so you can relate to this, once a month, our zoning board of appeals, we approve, like, now with Stride Academy owning both, we had to approve that they're gonna have senior class 9 through 12 there because they're short a few parking spots. So they had to come to the zoning board of appeals to get approval for that. I mean, something like that, and then this is going on to give you the perspective. Then, that building now that's painted yellow and red and everything else out by where Liberty Bank is, as you come down, that we had to approve a 200-person daycare for the zoning board of appeals for that. We have to approve if you wanted to build a shed and you're short in your square footage a foot to 2 feet on a building, we have to approve that or disapprove of it if they can do it. And I've said to Matt, because once a month we're in a meeting together and there's 6 of us or 7 that are the board, and I said, you got a problem here because we all know this is a residential PUD and it's a commercial operation. And David Broomfield won't even touch it. He said, this is Matt's deal. I'm not gonna be involved in this. And the only way we're gonna get any movement on this is as a group. Because as individuals, they're just gonna turn a blind eye to it. So what Murray's got here, and I've pushed on it, and they know, and then I got a phone call that said, well, what would be reasonable? And I said, I'm not sure. I said, for me personally, if they were done in a year and it was cleaned up and out of there, because we don't want it sitting like it is either, because it's such an eyesore. And that's the last thing I've heard right now, because the last conversation was that granite company said 4 years on this one and 10 on the other one of doing this. And it's like, some of us, you know, I hope to be alive if that happens.
so let me thank you, Danny, for that little ZBA update. But one thing that's interesting in the comp plan that the city wrote, they actually talk about quarries. It is important that the city and surrounding townships continue to enforce mining operation regulations to minimize negative impacts on nearby residents related to noise, dust, and potential nuisances. Over the near term, it is important that long-term site reclamation plans are in place to ensure compatibility with future development and leverage quarry areas as natural assets to the greater St. Cloud community. This is in their own comprehensive plan document. Okay, I'm going to start going fast, skipping through all this stuff. It's one thing after the other that supports our case in terms of what's going on here, starting with this comp plan. Code enforcement. I mean, this is funny. Consistent, very efficient code enforcement is an effective strategy to maintain existing neighborhoods. I'm starting to get riled up. Streetscape and gateways. I've worked with Matt Glazeman for 30 some years as an architect in St. Cloud doing projects. I'm just flabbergasted actually that he's taken this position that he has. But Matt likes to talk about gateways, and let's make a gateway into the city, and let's make a gateway into downtown. Gateways are important to set the tone for what this area is going to look like. Well, what does the gateway to Quarry Woods look like? I mean, you have to come in on 36th. Not 36, you can. But you come in on 36, you look to your left. There it is. You come in 34th. It's on both sides of you. You come on a 26th, you look to your right. There it is. You cannot avoid seeing that disaster from any way to get into our neighborhood. Okay, I'm not going to go through all this. Land Development Code, all kinds of stuff in here that talks about welfare of the public and the planned unit development. This is more detail about all the stuff that I went through. Okay, this is interesting. Mineral extraction. That's what they're doing. The rock is a mineral. They're extracting it out of the ground. The only zone that's allowed in is RR. That's what it was before they rezoned it to PUD. And even then, it requires a conditional use permit. They don't have that either. If you look at, well, this doesn't even show the PUD on here because they're talking about mineral extraction. More code stuff. Like I said, I might know this stuff better than the city official that's looking at it because I have passion about it and I've read it. I've read all this stuff every which way. I am looking for ways to be wrong because I don't want to be in front of the city or the planning director or whoever and have them say, haha, I caught you. You didn't see Exhibit A, Exception B of subsection Y. But I haven't seen it yet. So I don't know. I'm giving them the chances. So here's what I'm talking about. Screening. If this is really going to be an industrial operation, screen it off. These are pictures I just took of that other area at the end of 33rd over here. You can't even see in there except for the gateway, where the trucks can come in and out of that site. So again, this is the Quarry Woods specific PUD, duplexes, single family homes. None of the principal uses say anything about industrial mining activities. Here's what I showed you earlier. Here's some pictures for the council to look at some point about what's going on in there. So I want to talk about this issue here just a little bit detail besides the lack of adherence to the commercial activity in a PUD. This is a temporary excavation permit, TEP for short. A TEP was issued on this site from 2001 through 2007. That's the last time a TEP was issued. This TEP, what is it? Well, if we look at it, this is an email from the city. I'm not going to go into that detail. This is what a TEP is. It's a temporary excavation permit. The use of land for the removal of topsoil, sand, or gravel, or other materials from the land is not permitted except by granting of a temporary excavation permit. The applicant must submit a plan of intent as to the future use of the property and a projected period of excavation. It's necessary for the applicant securing temporary excavation to submit a performance bond. Why is that important? Because if they leave the site, who's going to clean it up? The city? The city's going to raise our taxes next year like 10%. They don't have money. They're not going to come out here and clean this up. So if they're not forcing that company to hold a bond to clean it up when they're done, there it sits forever. So I looked at, this is the actual TEP that was in place in 2007. I got a copy of it from the city. The permit's valid for 1 year. Controlled dust. They have to be 100 feet away from a right-of-way with their piles, 200 feet from a wetland. They can operate 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Believe it or not, they would let you work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Applicants required to get all permits, truck hauling, signage, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, the city doesn't want to do this TEP because it puts some onus on this granite company to pay attention and follow the rules. And the city has to review it every single year. And the residents get a chance to speak on it when it's time for the renewal. So they don't want to deal with that. So what if they did have a TEP? This yellow line here represents where all their stockpiles would have to be. Over on this site, just that little area there, over here, that little area there. You can see that almost all their stockpiles are outside of those limits. This is the land disturbance permit, goes into MPCA stuff, blah, blah, blah. Lots of ugly acronyms and things that have to be followed. I'm gonna go through this. Here's the notice of violation that the city sent to the granite company. I got a copy of it. I had to beg for it. I had to go through the data privacy, I don't know what it was, some kind of red tape with the city to say, okay, you guys have to share this as public information. Took like 2 weeks. So I finally got a copy of this notice of violation. And this is what the city issued. Inspection purpose, complaint. That's the only reason the city did this, is because somebody complained. And it also says if it's more than an acre, they're going to have to submit an MPCA NPDES compliance date here. Remedial action was still not done almost 3 weeks later. And all these yellow lines that they show here, where they were supposed to put these biologs, you see those log-like things that everybody puts out around their yard to keep water and stuff from going down? None of it was there. So I called the city and I said, I don't see the stuff that was in your report. Well, we changed our mind and said they could do it different. I said, well, how am I supposed to know that when I look at the violation report and it says it's supposed to do this? Well, we don't feel like we have to keep you up to speed on what we're doing with these guys. So I'm like, okay, I guess I don't know when they're following the rules or not, because the city is changing the rules after they gave them a violation and said, do this. So one of the big deals about a land disturbance permit is what's called a SWIP. That's short for Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. That is a big, big deal in the MPCA pollution control world. And there are 10 more pages to the SWIP. This is just the first page of it. And this is what they have to submit to operate on that site. When the city went out there, they said, oh, they're only working right here. That's 0.76 acres. Why is that important? As soon as the excavation area is more than 1 acre, it opens up a whole can of worms in terms of other stuff that they have to do. So it's interesting that the city said, oh, it's only 0.76 acres. Well, what about all this? They're digging over there too. What about that north site that they dug up? That's almost 10 acres. And as far as I know, they have no permits for what was done on that site. I've asked the city, why did you say it was 3/4 of an acre when you know it was more? They don't even answer the question. So how big is it? It's actually about 4 acres. This is the SWIP plan that the granite company submitted. It's 3 pages. I compared it to another SWIP plan that I got off the internet for a similar project. It was 58 pages long. So here's what the granite company said about what they're doing. Well, we're going to put biologs here. None of those were ever put in. This is the rock sorting area. Well, I don't know. Don't you see lots of rocks piled up over here? And here, and here, and here, and here. And they were trying to say that all the drainage is going in that direction. Well, when you actually go out there, what they did when they came here and worked on this, tore down the trees, took down this big hill that was there, and reallocated some of the dirt that was there, is they created a mound in this area. So all the water's going there, over onto the HOA property, and into this quarry here. This diagram is a joke relative to what actually is happening out there. So the other thing that comes into play once you're over an acre is if there are impaired waters within a mile of your site, it opens up a whole nother can of worms. So I went on to the MPCA Impaired Waters website. Well, sure enough, here's an impaired water creek that runs just to the east of Tech High School that's easily within a mile of where they're operating. I don't know. I guess they can just ignore that fact too. And they were in such a big hurry to put in that to tear out trees, to tear down this big hill that was there and build this rock retaining wall, that they built it on HOA property. So when you look at the property lines in the common area, right here, that's Quarry Woods. This is Granite Company. This black line is the property line between them. These red dots represent this new retaining wall that they built on HOA property. Maybe we don't care. I don't know. But as a owner of the common space, like all of us are, I'm not particularly excited that the Granite Company built a granite wall on our property, especially because when they did it, it sent mud water this spring into the quarry. This biolog that was supposed to be put in here, not there. These are some of the pictures of this. This minimal fence, silt fence that's there. I'll show you a picture of what happened this spring, how well that worked. None of the biologs are in place at this time. And this is a Dolinsky house right next to, it's almost done now. It's being built on the quarry, on the south quarry. Silt fence all the way around that site. And it's flat and it doesn't even drain into the quarry. So look at the protection that the homeowners that are building in our neighborhood are doing for stormwater compared to what the Granite Company does. So this was in the spring. That's all the runoff that was coming off of the retaining walls into the quarry and into the common area. I sent this stuff to the stormwater guy for the city. They went out there, took a look around, and don't get back to me about did they do anything? I don't know. So at some point, I suppose I could call the MPCA, but the city is the overriding agency because they're big enough that they can enforce or administer the MPCA rules. So you have to start with the city. And if the city says, well, we're following the MPCA rules, you're kind of at their mercy until you decide, okay, I'm going to call the MPCA myself. And I heard through the grapevine that the MPCA was out there sometime in the last month. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if anything came of it or what. Again, the city does not want to say much about what's going on there. Let's look at the historical context of the site. This is 2004. This is one of the quarries here, another one there. Just all lots of trees. 2006, you can see, these roads are put in. I don't know, is this Topaz back here? Anybody lives there? Yeah. This is 34th. And this little quarry thing, that's still there. And so this whole area is the Granite Company on the north side. This area right there, the Granite Company on the south. They own that little strip there. So that's 2006. This is 2008. This is when the city said we stopped issuing a temporary excavation permit because nobody was doing anything. Well, you can see that, this rock wall is in place here still, little rock wall there. Otherwise, it's just kind of flat, nothing going on, nothing active. Same thing in 2009, same thing in 2011. You look at that site, look at this, green grass, very nice. You maybe couldn't see in there because At that time, there was still that big granite wall that kind of went around there. You might have to, go over the top of that and look at it. But the reason it looked like that after 2008 is because that's when the developer and the property owner brought the proposals to the city to do an apartment project. So it was ready. Nice, supposedly clean, flat site, ready for development. Well, I think developers are smart, and they said, I'm not digging in there. That's going to be expensive, putting in utilities and digging up these rocks, and what do I do with them? So it sat there. 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. Nothing's happening. It just sits there. That's 2016. Still nothing. 2018. This is the year that the apartment project was approved. I mean, it looks pretty nice. I wouldn't have a problem with the site sitting there like that. I don't see any backhoes. I don't see any equipment. It's there waiting for development. Okay, this is what the city approved in 2018. You have an apartment building that's going to sit in here like this, 78 units. There'd be a driveway coming in right here. And then these were going to be all patio homes in here, another driveway there. And they were going to leave this little quarry water element there. So that's what's approved as a general plan. If that ever was going to actually go forward to get constructed, like Denny said, it would have to go through more city review. They'd have to see what the building looks like, does it look good, et cetera, et cetera. So now we're in 2020. In 2021, the neighbors complained about all the dirt and stuff coming out onto 34th from a backhoe or from something that was going on in there. And so there were complaints made to the city. So the city said, okay, we will move the access point over here to County Road 136. The city knew at that time that something was going on because dirt was being drug out onto 34th Street. But they didn't ask for permits. There was a backhoe in there doing something. So
As I say, they were hauling surface layer rock out of there. They come in every once in a while and buy a truckload and it's hauling out.
okay. Do you know if there was there a backhoe operating? There must have been something there to
get the
load
rock
these.
out into the trucks.
Yeah.
But they weren't digging.
Okay, they weren't digging. It was just whatever was on the surface. And that maybe goes back to what the city was saying in terms of, they're just getting rid of surface rock. Okay, well, that's one thing. But then, then you get to 2022. Now you can start to see that there's a lot of stuff starting to go on that site. So that's when the granite company moves to Outlot F sometime in there. They started on this site, dug it all up, didn't have any permits, and I don't know for what reason, they decided to load up their backhoe as soon as we built our house and said, let's go over here and really bug the hell out of the max. and they show up over there and start, doing their thing. And at first, through the grapevine, we hear a little bit like, they're going to fix it up. They're going to improve it. They're not going to take down that big hill that's there that screens off County Road 136. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll trust them. Seems okay. We're just going to sit tight, whatever. In the meantime, I'm starting to get more and more bugged by the situation, and to the point, in January of this year that I asked for a permit. So anyway, in 2022, the granite company moves over to this site here. They abandoned this one. It's been sitting there for almost 3 years, like totally exposed. And even at this point in 2022, the property was still owned by Linda Paulson. Whoever that is, I don't know, but if you go and look at the tax records, that's who owned it. Yet this company was in there doing all this work. Okay, 2023. Now they've actually expanded even into this area here. I had a friend with a drone over one day. He said, hey, I'll take some drone pictures. So these are the latest pictures of what things look like from 2025. This is the North Quarry Pit. This is 34th right here, a little piece of water. These are all their different, grout piles, different sizes, whatever. This doesn't, when you look at this, it doesn't look that bad. They're just rock piles. But when you see it at grade, like the picture in the beginning with the deep cuts and the rock piles and the garbage, this stuff sitting around, I don't know. It's a whole different story. This is the South Quarry Pit. This is the property line here between HOA property and then the granite company over here. And this is where they built this retaining wall all along here, but yet the HOA property line does, something weird like that. I don't think they knew that the HOA property line did that. I think they were just on a mission. Hey, let's build this wall. Let's put this wall up there. I don't know. What if somebody goes over here, something happens on this little chunk here, and some smart attorney comes along and says, well, that's not the granite company, that's HOA property. I guess you gotta talk to them.
Murray, what would you like to see, or what should we do from here forward?
Give me just like 5 more minutes,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna get through that. Okay, more pictures. Tired of them. Property values and taxes. I was curious, what is the city's motivation to let this go on? They must be getting lots of money from the granite company. I mean, all you have to do is go on the Stearns County tax site. It's a free website. Everybody can look at it. They're paying $11,500 for taxes here, $4,000 for that little strip, $1,000 for that strip there. Now, I don't want to brag about paying lots of taxes, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses here are paying $87,000 in taxes compared to, 17 roughly over here. Is the city getting sales tax off the granite that they're selling from that site? I don't know. I don't think so. They're selling it out of Woodbury. I mean, that's tax money that the city of St. Cloud isn't getting. That means they have to raise the taxes on us because they should be getting sales tax off the product that's being sold off of that site. If we look at the entire neighborhood, $550,000 of taxes being generated by our neighborhood compared to $17,000 by that company. Now, if that company wasn't even operating there, they'd still get their tax money unless they went bankrupt. So I don't understand what the motivation is. Okay, what's more frustrating is our neighborhood cares about what's going on in our neighborhood. We put boulevard trees in. We put in our own lights. We paint the fire hydrants. We paved, I think so. This is before my time, Kurt. Did we pay to pave the city paths? Karen?
You probably know more on that. I know we paid to have it resurfaced.
Resurface. Yeah. I mean, that's these pathways that go over here and they circulate, behind some houses over in that. That's actually that's a city path. And because they were in such disrepair, our HOA spent our money to resurface it. So we're doing all these things to enhance our neighborhood, make it look good at our cost, our volunteer time, while the city lets this operation go on next to us. County aggregate tax. They're not paying that. They should be weighing every truck that goes out of there and paying a tax on how much it weighs. And why is that important? Because 42% of that money goes to the town and 15% of it goes to a special fund to pay for restoration of old quarry sites. So if these guys aren't paying the aggregate tax, having their trucks weighed when they go out, there's no money going to the fund that's going to restore the site that they're tearing up.
Just to emphasize that, too, we talked about the site on the 33rd by 15. They installed scales. Every truck that goes out of there, they're collecting tax.
Now, I asked the county about this, and they said, well, I talked to the engineer. The engineer said, well, you got to talk to the assessor. And to be honest, I kind of hit the brick wall, so to speak, on this stuff, and I didn't bother to call the county and see if they were paying the aggregate tax. You know, they said to me, well, when a truck comes there, call the sheriff, and the sheriff will pull them over and weigh their truck. I'm passionate about this, but I'm not really like into calling the sheriff and, chasing down trucks. So health concerns. I don't know. I mean, this is minor, but I'm doing all this research on abandoned quarries and when they get opened up, and all of a sudden a bunch of stuff comes up about silicosis. Very, very fine dust that was created back in the day when they sawed all this granite out of this quarry. Well, all that dust got buried in the dirt and the rocks that were there that have been sitting there for 15, 20 years. Now these guys come along, they rip up that north site, all that dust, all that rock, all that stuff is exposed. It's blowing. The northwest wind blows over. We have dust all over our patio all the time. I don't know. I don't care how small the risk is. If the activity that's taking place there is illegal, it shouldn't happen. And that should scare the city. I mean, at one point, probably when somebody brought up asbestos, they said, no big deal. Well, 10, 15 years later, it was. Okay, health concerns. The biggest thing is noise. It's terrible. Unless, Roger, can you hear me? Sometimes. That's why Roger can't hear. So I made this little circle. This is a 700-foot noise ring, if you want to call it that. There's about 30 properties that are inside that ring, and you can hear this truck further away than that. I know that. But when they move to the north side here and you put the center of that circle in here, another 30 homes over here is going to get the same thing. Now, I have a friend here tonight, sitting in the back, Ken Bellico. He lives in Deer Creek. We were just talking about this one day, and he goes, oh, I can hear that. I can hear that truck over in Deer Creek. I said, really? I said, well, maybe I should talk to some people in Deer Creek then, too, because it's bad. And if you're retired and you're sitting in your house trying to read or be on the patio, it's a big deal. If you leave your house at 6:30 in the morning, come home at 7 at night, you don't know what's going on. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What is our responsibility? I don't know. This is off of our HOA website. Quarry Woods Homeowner Association, dedicated to ensuring the beauty, stability of the area, promoting neighborliness and pride among residents, and forming a base for representation in matters affecting our neighborhood. I don't know. You can look at the bylaws, covenants. It's pretty wishy-washy, in terms of anything there that says, okay, the covenants say that we really need to do something about this. What now? Do we, the Quarry Woods residents, accept the city's determination on land use and permitting on the mining sites? Is the Quarry Woods neighborhood prepared to endure another 15 years or more of this activity without proper city oversight? What will these sites look like when mining is complete and no restoration plan is in place or a way to pay for it? Finally, if you ever come to sell your house and a prospective buyer says, what about all this granite stuff going on? What do you say to them? I mean, if they're going to operate here for the next 15 years, it's almost like you want to keep this a secret. I don't know. What can we do? I have a petition I put together. It's here. I hope I've convinced you enough that I'm not just throwing darts. I don't want you to sign a petition if you're not comfortable that the issues that are being brought forward have merit. And so that's the purpose of this meeting. If a petition gets signed by enough people and it goes to City Hall, maybe they'll pay attention. Maybe not. I don't know. So anyway, the next steps would be for you guys to hopefully sign a petition, call your ward representative, Mike Conway, or email him. Just go to the city website. It's right there. Badger him. He won't respond, probably, but at least it's in the record. You know what? I went to an HOA meeting. I don't like what I saw. What are you going to do? I know that's hard for people to do. You don't want to get into the politics. You don't want to, have that stress and that stuff going on. But if we're going to do anything about this, it's going to take neighborhood action. So if we get a petition done, I don't care if I get 3 people at least to do it. Take it to City Hall. I would anticipate getting in front of the city council and saying, okay, you saw a petition. You guys are elected officials. We took this to your staff. Your staff said this, and this, but here's what your ordinance says. Could you please answer these questions in front of people from the neighborhood that are here tonight to listen to this, or the people that watch it on TV, which is probably not many, and help us. This is a copy of the petition. It's here. I'm going to pass it around. I hope you'll sign it. But anyway, this just sort of came to a point where it was time to notify the HOA. I've been taking this in baby steps for almost a year. And for those that aren't here tonight, I've recorded this. I might turn it into a YouTube and create a link, send it out. I mean, the other part about this, it's a little bit disturbing to some degree, is I just went to a few homes today to see if they got the notice about this or the information sent out. I stopped by Lon and Paula's house, and they're like, what? I didn't get it. I didn't see your memo or your email. And they're on the list. We have some weird stuff going on with the email system. Some people get this, some don't. So I'm left with the thought of, well, do I have to go door to door and verify that people got this? Did they read it? Do they understand it? Do they care? I don't know. I can do that. I think I have the energy left to do that, but it is a little, concerning that you're not sure who all knows about this or who's getting the information. So anyway, sorry, I'm done. I'm gonna open it up to questions.
Is the HOA involved, or is it just you at this point? Are they gonna get involved, or how does it work?
What do you mean by HOA?
The board supports
The board.
this?
I don't know. The board members are here. It's a tricky question about, at what point the board is, is the board representing the HOA? Does the HOA tell the board what they want and how they want them to represent them? Chicken and the egg kind of thing. My opinion, this is personal as a board member, is you see the facts, you can accept them or not, form your opinion, and tell people what you think. And support the people that have an issue with this. I know this issue affects some people more than others. Those that are living closest right now, this is a big deal. Those that live on the far east of the neighborhood, they probably can't hear it. Yes, they see it as they come in. But maybe it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't know. So, and I get that. It's going to be different things to different people.
Well, when it moves to the other site, though, more people will be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
What do you expect for a logical consequence? So if there's enough people that sign a petition, what do you really think can happen?
So the question was, what do you think can really happen? You sign a petition, whatever. I'm not that naive that I realize that nothing could come of it, possibly. Certainly, I think a petition, neighborhood pressure. I'm not opposed to media exposure. Call CARE 11. Call WCCO Investigates. I don't know. All of a sudden, somebody's calling the mayor from WCCO saying, hey, you guys got some weird stuff going on in your neighborhood. Can you answer these questions? The other thing, which is probably the last resort, are legal avenues. Question?
We have a contact with the person with the Star Tribune who does the local coverage. street improvement when we were taxed at a rate that broke state law. And so we would be happy to reach out
The
to
city
that.
fought it, and then when we got involved more with
And we
So-
got our settlement down
things like
from,
that, the settlement came.
went from 17,000 to 5,000.
Okay,
And so we would be happy to reach out to that person,
from where? The Star Tribune?
the Star Tribune, she's the St. Cloud contact.
Okay, well, that would
And
be,
she came and interviewed us, and
Great.
we sued the city and won.
well, I'm amazed. Holy cow. You sued the city by yourself as
So
two
what
individuals?
happened?
We did.
In our neighborhood, they did this, the improvements for sewer, water, street, right? And they assessed us what they felt was a fair assessment. According to state law, your assessment can only be what your property value goes up as a result of the project.
So I did the research and found the state law. We had a neighbor who was an attorney, and we teamed up, and between the two of us, we sued the city and won.
How much did that cost you, if I can
It
ask?
didn't cost us
Nothing,
anything
because
the neighbor said, we're gonna save the money.
I found the state statute, he was the attorney, so we teamed up, and there was no.
Oh,
cost.
so one
We
of
did
the,
it as neighbors.
okay, that helps.
So in all of the residents we have in Quarry Woods, aren't there some lawyers in here?
The point was the power of oil.
There's a comment that you don't allow.
We would be happy to reach out to this person.
Well-
She was awesome. We were a story in the Star Tribune, not to make it about us, but it was in the Star Tribune.
And how long did that process, how long did that process take?
Well, I bet it was about a year from the time, well, the assessment started and the construction started and the building.
Oh, it was 2 years.
So it was probably 2 years.
And I went to multiple city council meetings. I spoke to our representative. I worked on the front end. I worked on the back end. Like, it was involved.
Oh,
But it was ignored until court and then Star Tribune was involved.
So we'd be happy to help with, at least this person at the Star Tribune.
well, I appreciate that. I
I'll
mean,
keep in contact with you because you have
Yes.
the information.
You have the information, but we would make the
yeah,
contact.
yeah,
and-
no, that would be great. I appreciate that.
And
So,
I think the other person that was involved with us, Kevin, would probably be pretty interested too. He's pretty
We
passionate.
could reach out to the other neighbor that was
Yeah.
involved because he was sick of the city sticking it to the residents.
well, and I took the information that was sent out to the HOA members, the mayor's memo, the rebuttal, and I think the HOA, info thing or whatever. I did send that to an attorney after having done some research on somebody that deals with ordinances and following like MPCA and that kind of stuff. He's based out of Clearwater, I think. Used to be with a local firm here. I said, just give me your 2 cents on, does this have merit? Is it a waste of time? He at least, without any expense, looked it over and said, you definitely have a case here. But others that I've talked to about this said, no way are we gonna go down that road. It's gonna be 100,000, 200,000. The HOA is not gonna be chipping in, for this. We don't wanna pay for it. I don't know. I mean, I think some of the people most affected by this are willing to chip in some money to start with, to at least get a nastygram letter from an attorney to the city to get their attention. I don't want to go through a 1 or 2 year legal battle lawsuit, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit in my house either for the next 15 years listening to this racket.
I appreciate all the work that you've done on this, it's tons and tons of time. So a couple things. Have you, if I recall right, I think you said you did present this did you actually present this slideshow?
Not this exact slideshow, but the second part of it.
Okay.
Yes, the planning director has seen it, the city administrator has seen it, the mayor has seen it, the stormwater guy has seen it, and the HOA board has seen it.
Okay.
Was it Noah check?
Noah check, yes.
That's who you talked to?
I think some things that would, because some people would be like, who cares? Like, I can see both sides of the, like. oh,
Some
these are
people in the
just whiny-
neighborhood.
These are just whiny,
Yeah.
homeowners that are wealthy, right? And so, coming from the standpoint of the city, like what you guys did, of the city didn't, like, the company didn't follow the rules, have all those rules, like, they didn't go through the proper steps. else has to go through proper steps, no matter how, you know, whatever income. You have to go through these proper steps, so that's, I think, the big thing. And then putting out how loud it is, like, we just moved, almost actually, moved from, Walden Woods, and we could hear it there, it sounded like gunshots, over there it sounded like gunshots.
Way over at Walden Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like,
Well, it's almost like, you know, the city says, well, it's not grinding and, you know, Pat, the stuff you were talking about, which I'm sure was obnoxious. But in some ways, it's almost worse because it's kind of quiet, and then all of a sudden, bang!
it is, yes.
And it
Well,
just,
and I was gonna say earlier, and then I was cut off, is that you feel the vibration.
yeah.
It isn't just the sound, you feel the vibration.
Very good question. Okay, so you can solve those arguments, and you get the city to back you first. How hard are they gonna pinch us on all the proper permits and everything? Basically stand on this company, what would be, any kind of ballpark guess, what kind of dollars that would cost them out of their pocket?
The granite company,
Yeah, would it be
these
enough
permits
for
are,
their shit get?
these permits are cheap. The land disturbance permit that they ultimately got once I complained, $200. So it's not it's not the cost of the permit, it's the fact that they don't want to be responsible to follow the permit rules, because that's expensive. Now they gotta put in their little stormwater controls, they gotta, you know, screen things off, they can't operate all hours of the night and day and weekends, and that costs money. So that's why I mean, that's what really hurts, especially if you wanna start weighing their trucks, because now they gotta pay a tax. And so, yeah, we can make their life miserable by continuing to contact city officials, county officials, whatever, and that kind of works, but that just makes them mad. I mean, if that's not gonna ever make them stop, all of a sudden it's just like, okay, we'll show them. I'm gonna make it double noise, I'm gonna really throw these rocks around. And if there's nobody there to say, you know what, you gotta stop, we're gonna shut you down because you're not following, you didn't get a tap, you didn't get in front of the council and have your permit reviewed, all this kind of stuff, they will continue to just do whatever they wanna do.
Well,
So-
you're basically working on your own too, you don't really have any HOA board support or anything, so it's like you're kind of on your own
Well, so far,
program.
Right.
so far,
Exactly.
I hope that changes.
Well, I think it has to change. I think if you don't have some support, either from residents or the board or both.
Well, the board would be
Well,
the first thing.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's-
will quit. I can only, I have a passion for this because of my years of being an architect and doing this work and seeing how unfair this is. But at some point, it's like, I have a life.
well, we don't want you to quit.
Well, I know, but if I don't have, if the neighborhood is apathetic about it, or the board doesn't care,
So I think the next best steps are, what do we do moving forward?
Yeah.
Let's talk
what
about the next
what should we
steps.
do? You tell me.
So you wanted to start with the petition?
Yep, let's start with the petition.
We'll talk to Carrie, or start
We'll
with
talk to our
connect
contacts.
that. Talk to our attorney friend, see if there's anything that he's willing to do.
I am open to attorney
Yeah.
options, for sure.
Yeah, we can't say with that attorney, but for sure we have this contact.
So,
And we can give contacts for that person with the structure feelings to reach out to people, and I think the petition is great.
so it seems there's no harm to reach out to attorneys, whether it's here or somewhere. I don't know any of us wants to make money out of this. We just want this to be fair, take care of the community, safety, and if there's a lawyer, if there's all that money, a lawyer that takes this, they will probably get their money, and if you find the right person, they'll say, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, lawyers will take a case and say, you don't pay me unless you get
Well,
yes.
see,
So, I think doing that, or someone, a lawyer out there is gonna say, just like you heard, this is a case that's easy. We should just do this, or at least threaten, so that there's action. Because
So-
no one needs to get money here, it's take care of our
Right,
community.
yeah,
and
nobody-
our safety.
Yeah, this isn't about trying to
Right.
sue somebody to get money. We want
Right.
resolution. We just want the rules to be followed.
And I'm not ignoring that,
But I am definitely not an attorney. I'm an architect. So, in doing research on this though, it is very difficult to sue the city. It's a challenge. They have their own attorney, and even if you sue them, there's a limit of liability. I think it's like $300,000 or something. Cities are covered by the League of Minnesota Cities. They have their insurance group. Okay, so the city is sort of like, we'll fight you. The planning director doesn't have to get his checkbook out. The mayor doesn't. None of them have personal responsibility to have to own up to this. They can just write it off to the city attorney and to their insurance company. For us to fight it, we have to get our checkbooks out.
Well, the thing is though, maybe if there's enough noise made, you or one person, if a group of us are together, maybe we'll get more traction.
Well, I would hope so, yes. But I think at the same time, you have to come at all angles. It's
Well,
the HOA, it's the Tribune, and it's a 2-page letter from an attorney that says what's going on.
Multifaceted.
That they're coming in and they're not paying for, it's affecting the city, because they're not paying taxes on all those
Right.
trucks. Road
Right.
Also.
Exactly.
So there's certain, so what I was earlier, was like, so there's certain pieces that it's like, you put all those together, from the sound, from the city not getting, the taxes, to them not getting the ordinances.
To building a
it just
wall on our
affects-
property. I
Exactly.
mean,
It's
this
the
is-
sound, I mean, there's so many pieces to it that
Yeah.
it affects so many people.
You wanna pass
So
that
what
petition around?
community-
The other side is,
yeah,
there's no reclamation plan in place to that they have to do anything when they leave. I mean, this thing could look like an abandoned mine, because there's no reclamation in place.
Murray, do you know if they posted a reclamation bond?
They have not posted a reclamation bond as far as I know, because that's part of the TEP, and they don't have a TEP, so I don't believe there's any reason to know about that. And it's so hard for me to get information from the city. When the city, the last correspondence I had with them, they sent me an email, unprovoked, that said, we are checking on the NPDS stormwater construction permit requirements. We're not sure if it's construction or residential. And I'm like, okay, can I see what the application was like and what's going on? Nothing. They don't, then they shut it off. And the only way I can get information from them is to do this online red tape. I can see it because it's public type thing. So maybe they have posted a bond or something, I wouldn't know that. Yes?
Okay, so for those that aren't here tonight, if we know neighbors that aren't here tonight, could you email us like a 5-point bullet of what's on this petition or why you're proposing this petition that we could either hand to the neighbor or I'm on the path. I see walkers in this area every day. So couldn't we have a walker or two just put a flyer on each door, call this number if you're willing to sign?
That'd be awesome, yeah. I do have some forms made up, they could be, printed. It's not like we have 1,000 people to deal with. By the time you take Armadillos that own like 20 lots, and Roger Bond has 12, I think there's maybe somewhere around 80 or so individual separate ownership entities that would actually, sign a petition. Probably more, I guess, if you go across the woods and talk to the people that aren't in our HOA anymore, but they're in the Quarry Woods HOA. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not opposed to going over to Ken's neighborhood in Deer Creek and saying, you know what, I know you guys aren't in this, but support your neighbor, us, and see what happens. So, again, the problem with the email thing is you send that out and some people do it, some don't. And so you almost, to be super sure, you have to go door to door write it down, okay, stop at that person's, they got the petition, they signed it, they didn't. It's just a little bit of a process. And the more signatures we have, obviously the better. And anyone, if they're not comfortable with it, they shouldn't have to sign it, that's their choice.
What mailing you think?
Do we know where
Yes.
the original
I mean, real
developer
mail.
stands on this?
The old.
I'm
Do
sorry,
we know where the original developer stands on this issue?
oh my gosh, they're long gone. It was,
Who's sitting on the
Noble.
open lots?
Noble.
Well, the open lots is a company called the Armadillos, and they're the ones that took over this development from Noble, who went bankrupt. And Noble's the one that would have established the original PUD and brought this to the city to propose this residential
So
development.
wouldn't it behoove us to contact Armadillo to say, hey, you know what, this is affecting you also?
For sure. I reached out to Christy. You guys know her? Christy? She's the real estate person that represents all this. I specifically sent it out to her, a copy of all that stuff you guys got. I texted her and emailed her and said, you should be at this meeting. And did you get the information? And you represent at least 20 lots in this neighborhood. You do sales back and forth. You should know about this. You should respond. I hear nothing. No response from you. So, I don't know what that means.
I wonder, are you selling houses? In Wisconsin?
Just in the essence of time, I know there's one thing here.
There's
People
two.
want-
There's two
Oh,
of them
there's,
going.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, just keep it going. I know you guys got better things to do. I'll hang around here afterwards if you want to talk some more. Otherwise, I'll look for these guys back here to
Well, yeah, we will
contact
sure
me.
reach out to you.
And I will try to send out another email. This is a simple 5-bullet thing. We'll just see if we get this petition done. And thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.